All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for coming. My name is Todd Brous. I'm your host for the evening. I'm here with Susan Schultz and Ashley Wilson, and we'd like to welcome everyone to HBAP Startups. And so let's just get started. I'm going to breeze through this tonight, just so we can get to the fun stuff. But our mission, for those of you new to the group, is we have a few announcements at the beginning of each meeting, and we'll do some short networking breakout rooms, and then we'll come back together for our main event. And our mission is we're here to help foster and fortify an innovation and entrepreneur community coming out of the Harvard Business Analytics program. And our goal is to provide our members with the tools, knowledge, leadership, and confidence necessary to create and grow their businesses from the ground up. To get in touch with us and stay connected with us, we do have a little bit of a website. I'm going to put this stuff into the Zoom chat. We have a newsletter, so please do sign up for that. And share, bring a friend. Um, Next week, we're doing another workshop on customer discovery and de-risking your organization. The following week is a follow-up from a presenter from a year or so ago, 2 years ago, Doug Schultz. He is the son of our co-founder, Susan Schultz, the life of a startup founder. He is an HBS grad. And then I'm thrilled to announce that on May 21st, Steve Rader, now recently retired from NASA, he is the former program manager at the NASA Tournament Lab and the Center for Excellence in Collaborative Innovation. Steve is coming. So he's agreed to come present on open innovation and his career at working at NASA. So I am absolutely thrilled for that. So please add that to your calendars. And again, code of conduct, I guess, just keep in mind that we are here for us and we do collaborate and have a sense of confidentiality and trust. Please do keep in mind that all of the rights are reserved by the presenter. We do follow the HBAP honor code and ethical behavior. And when it comes to feedback, we try and focus on Francis Fry's 5-to-1 feedback ratio. 5 pieces of positive reinforcement to every 1 piece of constructive advice, and please, no destructive. And if a conflict of interest arises, please let's discuss, and decide on how to address it. So let me do some social breakout rooms. Give me a second because I normally have a few moments to do this and create them. Oh, I'm gonna have to hold on. Recreate the breakout rooms. About 5-6 minutes, and we can have guys can meet people. And oh wait, nope, that's not gonna work. All right, let me pause the recording. All right, welcome back, welcome back. I hope you had fun in your breakout rooms. Thank you. Let me just a couple of other announcements. Just a little reminder, when you exit Zoom this evening, please do fill out that little survey that shows up that helps us improve these sessions. The recording tonight probably won't be made public just because this is a prototype workshop and we'll see how this goes. But at the end, please do stick around for some overtime and when we end the recording. And now, without further ado, it is my honor to introduce tonight's speaker, me. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. Thank you, Carlos. All right, hold on. Bear with me while I switch gears and slide decks and everything that I'm working on. And just so while I'm doing this, folks, Carlos Baldwin is a Harvard professor, and she has written 2 incredible anthologies on tonight's topic. So the pressure's on me to make sure I can express these incredible concepts and how this is going to affect our practices and our strategies when we're dealing with artificial intelligence. All right, let me share my screen. Modularity effects. Here we go. All right. So little introduction and learning objectives. Modularity meets artificial intelligence. Why is this important now? In the age of agentic AI, and I've got a couple of slides we might get to on agentic AI, we're seeing massive changes, and it's the augmentation effects, it's humans with AI, and then the replacement effects, it's humans replacing AI, and the transformation effects, which is the new business models and new ecosystems and new jobs and new roles that are going to arise out of these new technologies. And one of the questions I get constantly from the people that I talk to and business leaders is, well, where should I go? What should I do? What should I look at? And this is what one of the things that we're going to work on tonight. So the goal is to understand modularity as a design and organizational principle, and try to, if we can get there, to see how a large language model can execute on a modular task. And so we've got some breakout rooms. I've got a slide deck that we can run through, a shared deck that the breakout rooms can try and fill some out. We'll see how this goes. Again, this is a prototype presentation on a workshop to see if this is actually digestible and makes sense to everyone. So I would love your feedback at the end. And then I guess that those breakout rooms, the goal is to practice identifying and experimenting with modules within your own context, in your own industries and businesses. And I always like this, just in the age of AI, the only future where we thrive is through our human relationships. So please do connect with me. I'm going to put a link to my Linktree in the Zoom chat. I've recently just created a Patreon page just because doing this stuff takes time and money, and that would be really helpful. So if you can, I definitely would appreciate some support on the Patreon side of it. But please subscribe to my Substack and come to the startups as well. All right. Before I forget, I also teach a class at the School of Visual Arts. So if you have any designers or creatives or artists in your midst who are interested in learning about artificial intelligence and business and strategy and machine learning and data science, this is the class that I teach. And enrollment just opened up for the summer session, and classes start on June 3rd. So please spread the word. I also have some news, which I love showing and sharing because I like that we get to stay on top of this technology. Bear with me while I pull up my other slide deck. So I got a bunch of slides on this. I think this is always important to know. So the latest news, in case you haven't heard, OpenAI earlier today released a number of incredibly powerful new models, O3 and O3 Mini. They basically dropped a bomb on the AI universe. So please do take a look at this. I wanted to point out their math metrics, which are, oh wait, did I skip past it already? Multimodal, oh yeah, I did. It's right at the top. These are incredibly, like, they're 92.7% on these math skills. Like, these are AGIs here. Keep that in mind with all of this stuff. These are incredible benchmarks. I started playing with O4 earlier, O4 Mini earlier, and it's absolutely amazing. Also, I found this. For a while there, I was trying to map out the Agentic AI landscape, and I got tired of it. It was almost impossible to stay on top of it, but these folks have automated that, so I highly suggest taking a look at it. What happened here? 2 years of progress. By the way, I follow Min Choi on Twitter. This was 2 years. This is Will Smith eating spaghetti in March 2023, and this is April 2025. So we've come a long way in video processing. In case you haven't heard, Unitree, the robotics company out of China, now has boxing robots. What could possibly go wrong here? I have absolutely no idea, but nonetheless, this is where we're at. Be nice to your AI overlords. For those of you who are designers and creatives, there's a new deep site gallery on Hugging Face where you can literally create your own website just by talking to it. I haven't played with it, but it's going to generate all of the code for you. Also, OmniHuman 1, these are the folks out of ByteDance. They just dropped this lovely little bombshell.
They would be empty of values. So a famous classical poet said, "We hate and we love. Can one tell me why?" Catullus.
Awesome stuff there. What else? NVIDIA. Oh, so this is the other thing. This is related to the startups and entrepreneurs in the room. If you are really interested in building apps, I highly suggest you take a look at Replit. We've been ideating on whether or not we should give a workshop here and teach people how to use some of these platforms and some of these tools. There are a number of them where you just type, you give it a prompt, or you just ask the AI, build this app for me. These are paid on average. There are also some free ones that you could build on and wrap your own. Another one is called bolt.new. This is another fantastic platform that you basically just describe what it is that you want to build, and it will build it. And then a couple of days ago, the folks over at Google dropped a bomb on the AI app development universe. They released Firebase Studio. If you have used any Google platform related stuff for your enterprise backends, Firebase is well known in this universe. I've used Firebase on a couple of projects. It's absolutely fantastic. Now they've just incorporated all of their AI technology on top of Firebase, and they've released Firebase Studio, where you can just describe your app in as much detail as possible, and it goes and builds it. It is an iterative process, but you can now go do it. Documentation is all here. It's comprehensive, it's extensive, it's complicated. And this was the other thing that they had a web-based IDE called Project IDX, and they wrapped it into Firebase. So Google is executing at some of the highest levels of productivity and implementation right now. I'm incredibly impressed with them. For a while, I thought that they were Kodaking the company, but not anymore. They are a market leader. Also, OpenAI just released GPT 4.1 in their API, so we'll see the other models. This came out a couple of days ago. Moving on. What else was there? NVIDIA has a Llama 3.1 Nematron, another LLM. Nope. Oh, and this was the other thing. Google also at their recent thing announced the agent-to-agent protocol. So for those of you who are developers, you might have heard of MCP that came out of Anthropic. MCP enables agents to work with other tools. A2A protocol enables agents to work with other agents. So that key that I have been talking about for, I don't know, about a year or so, that something that we need, Google just solved that problem. All right. And then lastly, I just want to show folks, this just dropped from a company called Kling.ai. Kling 2.0, this is video generation. We're there. The quality of this is replacement effects level technology. So it means that anyone who pays for this tool can produce exceedingly high quality content for very little. And the traditional production pipelines that we had to usually do, hiring animators, hiring actors and actresses, and visual effects artists, has basically gone away. So definitely take a look at Kling AI. This is their website, klingai.com, and highly recommend it. Oh, and then the other thing that they announced was for those of you who are Google people, Google Workspace now has a bunch of AI capabilities that are built into it. So if you are building Google Slides, you can now just ask AI to build the slides for you. There's been a bunch of competing platforms. They've got this new feature called Workspace Flows, which I've asked to get beta access, but they haven't granted me. This is basically Google Workspace with agents built into it. A bunch of stuff in Google Docs, but definitely also worth taking a look at. All right, so that's enough of the news. Moving on, because let's get into the workshop now. All right. So, hope the news was helpful. All right, little bit of business theory. So I have to, this is the dry part, and hopefully I'm going to be able to explain this nicely. So nobody likes business theory. Everyone wants just like, tell me what to do. Okay. So I'm going to start with modularity. And again, I'm really honored that Carlos Baldwin is on the Zoom call here tonight. By the way, everyone connect with Carlos on LinkedIn. So what is modularity? The definition that I found was the degree to which a complex system can be broken apart into subunits, modules, that can be recombined in various ways. So why is this important? The question that I'm constantly asked by business leaders and students, well, okay, what should I do? Where should I experiment with AI? How should I experiment with AI? And listening to Carlos and reading her books, it was like, well, that's the answer. It's in her research. And businesses and structures and systems were designed with these modules. And what we need to know and recognize is, okay, if I can find the module within my existing company, that's the place to start experimenting with agentic AI. That's it. It's real simple. Not my idea. It's all Carlos's. And her book with Kim Clark, Design Rules, Volume 1 and Volume 2, they show how these modular architectures grant this value, enabling flexible evolution. So where we can find the module, we can upgrade a module. We can swap it out for a better version of a module. And this applies not only in supply chain and in hardware design, but also in the people and the structure and the way we work. That's one of the aspects of modularity. And one of the key features of this is the clearly defined inputs and outputs. And ideally, there's a low independence between the modules, so we can swap out those modules. Sorry, low interdependence between the modules. So where should I experiment with agentic AI? The answer is find the module. That's the advice. And by the way, I'm just going to do this. Sorry, Carlos. I'm calling you out. I'm putting your links and your books in the Zoom chat. So examples of modules is always a challenge to think about this. And one of the things that we're going to do in our breakout rooms is hopefully we'll be able to come up with some ideas together about the modules and the modularity within our organizations, and we can run an experiment afterwards. The other thing that in terms of business theory that I want to touch on is the mirroring hypothesis. I think this hopefully might not confuse people too much, but the core idea with this is organizational structures themselves, meaning the people, tend to mirror the designs of their products and platforms. And so by analyzing your product or the process modules, you can also infer areas for organizational experimentation. And with the agentic AI stuff that's coming out, there you go. So look at your organization, find where these modules are, look at how you build stuff and the way you build stuff, and you're going to see that there are teams of people, there are structures within your organization that are ripe for experimentation. So if there are any questions on that, please raise your Zoom hands. And how did I do, Carlos? Did I do okay? What am I missing? I'm cold calling on Carlos and she's muted. No, we don't hear Carlos. You're still on mute, Carlos. I can't hear you, Carlos. Cannot hear you. All right. Well, I'm gonna move on. I don't hear Carlos. All right. Sorry. The other thing that right, double muted. The other thing I want to talk about, and most of the HBAPers here in the room have probably heard about this concept of ambidextrous organizations. This comes from Charles O'Reilly and Mike Tushman, some of our professors. But that firms simultaneously need to exploit and explore or focus on the core of their business at the same time that they need to explore new opportunities. So you have the core units of the organization, and you have your innovation units of the organization. So we've heard this explore and exploit. We've heard this. Oh, you can't hear me?
We can hear you. We can hear you.
Oh, okay.
I can hear you, Todd.
Oh, good. Okay. I just saw Chanaka saying that we can't hear me. All right. So focusing on this explore and exploit is fundamental to the experimentation of agentic AI. And just a little bit of additional theory here. This is a slide from O'Reilly and Tushman's Lead and Disrupt. So most of us have probably seen this already, but this is the design of an ambidextrous organization. And again, the traditional thought process is Kodak. Don't Kodak your company. So the ambidexterity occurs at the leadership team, and you have a separate innovation unit, separate business units of ambition, autonomy, and access. And this innovation unit in the agentic AI strategy, if you're a business leader, hire a bunch of AI practitioners as an innovation unit, as an exploration unit, and you give them a separate P&L, you give them a separate culture, you give them a separate wing, and in no way, shape, or form should anyone in this innovation unit have any direct interaction with the core of the business. The reason is, and the goal, the mission of this agentic AI innovation unit is to literally replace the core of the organization. In every single cognitive task, in every single module within the core of the business, the goal, that's the mission of the innovation unit. So that's the strategy. And many businesses are already doing this. I've seen a couple in advertising and media and entertainment who are like, yeah, but we don't ever talk about the first rule of modularity is we don't talk about modularity. Why? Because if anyone in the core of the business found out that the company had hired agentic AI practitioners, with the specific mission to replace all of those employees and all of those work processes, that would freak out and you would lose your current employees. There would be a mutiny, basically. You would put yourself out of business before you could put yourself out of business. And in case you haven't read all of these books, I'm just going to put these into the, you always need, yes, you do need a human in the loop, Chanaka, you 100% need a human in the loop. That human in the loop is in the C-suite. So just to be clear, the human in the loop is at the leadership team. And that's the that is the architecture of an AI first organization. All right, so a few slides on agentic AI. I'm going to skip this because I've already covered this repeatedly in our workshops here. But what is agentic AI? It generally refers to these AI systems that can possess the capacity to make autonomous decisions and take actions to achieve specific goals with limited or absolutely no human intervention. So imagine you're the CEO of a company or a team leader, and you walk into a meeting room filled with your team, and you give them a mission, you give them a goal or a problem that they need to go solve, and the team just goes and does it. Now replace all of those people with agents that are all AI. So they're capable of autonomously replicating the human decision-making process of that team. All the goal setting, the planning, the adaptability, the feedback loops, all of it. That's what agentic AI, and that's the promise of agentic AI. Does it work perfectly? Absolutely not. But we're on that roadmap. And by the way, I haven't really played with any of my agentic tools with the new OpenAI models. So all bets are off. All right, so what's an agent? This is an individual piece of software that can interact with its environment. It can collect data, and it can use that data to perform self-determined tasks to meet some predetermined goals. The humans generally set the goals. Yes, the human in the loop. Yes, you do need to, Chanaka, you need to put some guardrails on that. But those guardrails will be agentic. So we will set up an agentic, an agent that would be the guardrail checker to make sure that all of this stuff is within the parameters of the workflow that we're creating. That's great insight. So this agent is capable of acting independently. It's going to be able to choose the best actions that it needs to perform to achieve those goals. And I guess the key point here is that it's autonomous and they're rational. They can make decisions based on their perceptions and the data that they're given to make optimal performance, to produce optimal performance and optimal results. So here's a slide that I've shown before on what an agent conceptually looks like. The same way we would prompt ChatGPT or a large language model, and we would give it an output. It would give us some output. That I'm just replacing prompt and text to a task and some output. But looking inside of here, we have this diagram of an LLM agent. Keep in mind here that this large language model is the reasoning agent. It's what's doing the thinking basically for us. And we give the large language model access to memory. So whether this is a traditional database or just files on a hard drive or a vector database or a graph database, retrieval augmented generation is something you might have heard of that gives the LLM access to memory. We also can give it cognitive skills. So imagine we have already trained a traditional old school machine learning tool, like a regression analysis or a decision tree or a recommending engine. Some of those tools will help. The large language model can give this tool access to whatever information that it's processing and then get a result and make a decision based off of what that traditional cognitive skill is. And then the fun stuff is the tools, where these tools can actually reach out, take an action on its external environment, and wait for the results, get the results, and analyze that results, and reason about that result, and make decisions on that result. So this LLM this agent can be by itself if it's modular and small and very granular, or it can be integrated with other different additional agents and work together in more collaborative workflows. Does every little task need reasoning? Is it not expensive? Yes, and yes, it is expensive. But on average, the prices for the tokens that you're paying, depending on where you're doing this and what you're doing, the costs are going down exponentially. And just about every single task does need some level of reasoning. And my next slide kind of goes into some of that reasoning stuff. But again, this was my diagram previously, but you have your input, you have your output. This large language model call will will direct an action to be taken with a tool. So if you technically want to speak, if I can speak technically, it's an API call. Like the LLM is going to run an API call. We're going to get some access, some information from that tool, and it's going to have a feedback loop. That's that human feedback loop of a person doing something, thinking about it, and trying again and iterating. So that's what we get. Another aspect of the agentic stuff, and again, this is the previous slide, but LLM directs its own actions based on the environmental feedback. So we get this feedback loop. It's really fantastic going on here. Yes, the chain of thought prompting, that's going away in the reasoning models. So the traditional foundation LLMs, that we would need the chain of thought prompting. Hey, think through this step by step before you give me the answer. Absolutely. But the new O series of models, the DeepSeek R1 models, those reasoning models, you don't want to actually ask it to do the chain of thought prompting, Chanaka. It's built into the actual architecture itself. So they're fantastic. But then these agentic workflows, sometimes you don't need this constant feedback loop of a team of people just talking stuff. Sometimes the things that we do, the modules that exist within our organizations are actually kind of, understandable in the sense that they're not a free flow. We can come up with a structure. That structure is like an ace in the hole. If you can come up with a structure that has a workflow within that module, do your experiment there because it's going to be low-hanging fruit and relatively easy to get some incredible results out of it. So prompt chaining, the parallelization, so the LLM is embedded in predefined code paths, and then you get these control flow paths where you have this orchestrator worker or this evaluator optimizer. Like, hey, but I'm using this in some of the marketing pipelines that I'm building. So a generator will say it's going to generate an image, and an evaluator will look at the image and say, does this image look good by whatever threshold we are looking for? And there'll be an iterative, and then it's like, oh yeah, this one looks good. That's the image we're going to go with. Oh no, this image is horrible. And here's why. Here's what I suggest you improve upon it. That feedback loop would exist in a evaluator optimizer pipe. And sometimes the workflows that you're dealing with are just like, we need a decision. We're going to go up or we're going to go down. So there are tools and structures and API calls and all sorts of fun frameworks and code bases that you can use that actually implement all of this stuff. These are from LangChain, so that's the first place I would suggest people take a look. And just so I can take a step back and so folks really understand where we're going with this. Imagine a team of people. So here's this advertising team where we have a brand manager, creative director, strategist, media planner, art director, copywriter, producer, and an account manager. All of these people would be working on an advertising campaign. And so there's information that's flowing amongst all of these people depending on the project, depending on the mission, but on average, there's communication going between all of them. So imagine this team of people in that room, all collaborating, working together on the creating an advertising campaign. Now, I just want to point out what's not on the connections that are not on this diagram, because that's actually important. On average, the copywriter doesn't really talk to the art director, or the copywriter doesn't really talk to the media planner. Like, so those are some of the guardrails, Chanaka, that you were talking about. To me, that's where I would implement this. Because some of these communication flows don't have to be everyone in a room talking amongst themselves in a large room. There are workflows, there are pipelines that occur depending on the different stages of creating an advertising campaign. But all of these people can be represented by a number of individual agents that are related to the individual subtasks that each person does as part of their job. I hope that makes some sense. And this applies to, legal, software development, and all sorts of other fun things. All right. So experimentation in modular units, again, we want to focus on finding these small scopes of modules that reduces the risk within this experiment of deploying some sort of an AI. We want to simplify that measurement. So one of the things I'm about to ask everyone is to help me find the modules within your practice. And when you have this module in mind, you have to focus on the clearly defined inputs and outputs. If the inputs aren't clear or the outputs are, it depends, we have a level of complexity, and that we might not be ready for that, quite honestly. So also keep in mind the KPIs, the metrics, speed, accuracy, cost, whatever you're looking for in terms of that modular unit. And then what we'll do after we go into breakout rooms, we'll come back and we'll just run an experiment, see if we can get ChatGPT to give us something. And the goal is to determine if the agent that you've built can match or exceed human performance. That's the ultimate goal with all of these ambidexterity experimentation. Okay, so mapping your modules. Ideally, we want to keep the modules as small as possible. So think about what you do in your organization, within your job, within your role, and find some small input, small output, some granular task, and we can explore that. So again, the inputs, what data, what information, what materials, what triggers, the outputs, what are the deliverables, what are the decisions that would be made, and if you have understanding of your module, what are the cognitive steps? What's the analysis? What's the judgment? What are we creating? What are we thinking about that cognitive step within the module? All right. So what I'm going to do is let me go walk you through the breakout room activity. We'll break everyone up into rooms of like 3 or 4 people. And the task is to fill out this worksheet. We'll take about 15-20 minutes. Hopefully we can get a couple of them, and we'll come back and we'll discuss. All right, so here's what I'm going to give you in a second. I'm going to share a Google slide deck that each team could have access to, and the goal here is for each of you to come up with a name, describe it, describe what your inputs are, describe what your outputs are, describe any cognitive steps, describe those success metrics, and any notes or any tools that you would think of. Oh, hey, we should use this tool or this piece of software, ChatGPT, to whatever. So I'm not paying attention to the Zoom chat, but I'll put this also in the shared slide deck, so you'll have access to this. Here's a bunch of examples. This marketing mockups. So the module description would be to create an initial design or copy variations based on campaign briefs. The inputs would be the brand guidelines, the campaign objectives, the target audience and details. The outputs would be draft ads, copy snippets, design mockups. The cognitive steps would be to interpret the brief, apply brand tone, generate creative concepts, and create. The success measures would be: is this quality? What do we think of the output? Does it comply with the brand? And then and time to draft it. I don't agree with that. So that's the goal. All right. And then what we'll do is we'll come back. We'll do a little Wizard of Oz experiment. We'll just run some of these ideas through ChatGPT and see what we get. All right, let me stop my share and I'll pull up the other slide deck. Any questions while I shift gears into the other deck? And I really appreciate you guys coming to this. Bear with me. Okay. So here's the slide deck. This will be the submission deck. I'm going to put this into the Zoom, a link to this in the Zoom chat right now. So you should be able to click on this. I think I got it right. Anyone with the link is an editor. Perfect. Thanks, Jonica. I love you, man. So the goal here, let me just pull up the instructions. So again, the plan is identify the modules, try and keep the modules as small to your organization as possible, define the inputs and outputs, articulate the cognitive steps, set whatever success metrics, and give any notes or annotation to that. And so what we'll do is when you go into your breakout room, so you'll have a group of people, please don't forget to put your names here. So like group 1, breakout room 1 will be the red, breakout room 2 will be the orange, and you get the picture. All right. Any questions? No questions? All right. Let me turn off the All right, so you got a few breakout rooms. I'm going to open up all the rooms in a second. All right, here we go. Got 3 people in a room. I'll see you all in a few. I'm going to pause recording. Doo-doo. All right, welcome back. I hope you had fun in your breakout rooms. So let's go through some of these submissions and see if we can find one or two that we could like, all right, this is like, I can wrap my head around this. And we're just gonna open up ChatGPT and understand I have not done this. This is still a prototype. This is still an experiment. And we're just gonna imagine ChatGPT is an agent and we're gonna look at its processing capabilities, its agentic capabilities, and we'll see what we can come up with. All right. So group number one, Daniel and Brian, what did you guys come up with? Which one of these is your favorite that we should really be exploring?
I think, Todd, probably the second one we could use it. I think it's a little less complex in terms of, like the first one, it's about triaging patient phone calls in a call center, in a health center. And, there may be some complexity there in terms of if the patient's having an emergency and what kind of emergency, et cetera. But the second one is similar. And in our organization, we've been thinking about creating some sort of training AI to help our staff, particularly our staff in the call center, know exactly how to handle a particular patient request. And we have a training manual. It's a whole bunch of, it's a binder with a lot of documents. But, can we create a chat bot that they can query and say, hey, what am I supposed to do with this particular request? And have this AI train on the procedure so that the call center person knows exactly how to handle that request.
Actually, this is a great example. By the way, I also like this patient call triage. One of the things, so the inputs to the staff training tool, so it's a staff training tool. The description is the staff training queries the AI about the processes or necessary steps to provide a particular service. Okay, so the inputs would be the staff member provides an entry with the name of the process to follow, but the staff member knows the process already.
Yeah. So let's say, how do I register a new patient versus how do I schedule a patient that's already registered and has an existing record? Just to name an example.
Okay, so one of the other inputs would have to be all of the knowledge. Again, this would be relative, the related knowledge to that information.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, good. So the outputs the large language model will output the process that the employee is querying, and it provides the necessary guidance and steps to complete it. Okay, this is straightforward. The cognitive steps are understanding the process the employee is looking for and fetching the details, satisfaction feedback from employee to rate the accuracy of the LM AI, and the LM to be trained on company policies and procedures to generate the output. Okay, yeah, that's the key other input. Okay, great. Now, I just want to, because this I think is fascinating, I want to read out this patient call triage. The patient calls the call center requesting guidance to connect with a provider or access a particular service. So again, just front level one call center automation type thing. Press one for this person, press two for that person, but not pressing one. So the inputs would be the chief complaint, hi, my elbow hurts or I have a paper cut. The name of the particular service would be part of the inputs, the specific request, so prescription refill or need for an appointment. Okay, yes. And then the outputs would be the instructions or transfer of the call to the right phone extension. Perfect. The cognitive steps would be understanding where the call needs to be routed or what response answer the patient needs. And the success metrics would be a properly triaged phone call. See, I love this. I am so attracted. I don't know how to do this in our little workshop right now, but damn, I would want to do this with a real agentic pipeline. The reason why I don't know is because the inputs in my mind are confusing me. We'd have to really provide that information. Yeah, this is a great use case for agentic. All right, we'll come back to this in a second. Let me pull up the other groups. Chanika, Carlos, Mafe, what have you guys done here? Efficiency in developing a drug device combination product. Okay, so this is about developing the device. So we need to provide a protocol and a report generation. That's what that's what the description is going to do. Okay, so the inputs are templates, past protocols, past reports, standard operating procedures, asset description. This is complicated. Ingest data from third-party generated data forms that are ingested from the protocol. And then the outputs will be the asset-specific protocol and the asset-specific report. Chain of thought, query LLM sequence of steps for the report called the stats package. Okay, wow. This is a much more complicated agentic pipeline. Are there no hallucinations? 95% accuracy. Yeah, you're raising the bar high. Damn healthcare, Tonica.
Hey, it has to be submitted, so.
Right, exactly. What are your thoughts on this? Like, do you think that this is something that, you know, is
Oh
doable?
yeah, I mean, I think this is possible. Yeah, because there's ways to work on that, You just have to come up with the right sequence of prompts and, whatever templates. The ingesting data part will be the tricky part. Like if there's a third party that's, getting the data. So then if you're like getting the data, you're scanning it, you're adding it, that's the asset specific data, right? Then like, can it do that? And then can it call upon like a stats package to say, oh, for that, it meets the acceptance criteria at 95% confidence with 95% reliability, that kind of thing. Like the call to a stats package would be interesting to me. Like how could the LLM do that, or can it do that now?
Oh, 100%. By the way, what does the call to the stats package look like in your mind? Like what information, like was this a regression analysis or?
No, it would be
What
like a testing confidence and reliability. So like if you think of Minitab or any of those packages, right? You can test confidence and reliability to the acceptance criteria, right? But one of the other things is also the data has to be ingested, right? And then you would check the result against the acceptance criteria in the protocol. And if it passes, then you would say it passes in the report. You get what I'm saying? So there's a connectedness there.
I think so.
Yeah.
That's complicated. I don't know if that's gonna. I'm wrapping my head around. Let me come back to this one. Let's see
It's
what.
not complicated, Todd.
Oh,
I'll explain
for
to you. You come
you, it's
over.
not complicated. For me, I don't know. All right, Roland,
And I think,
Terry.
in
Oh,
addition, the third-party data for this kind of project, I think you have to purchase that, right? And it's gonna be a
Well,
clean
we
data
pay a
by the
vendor.
temp.
Yeah, we pay a
Mm-hmm.
vendor and they execute it and then they give us the data. Yeah.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Would they be able to do that through an API, or is that a
The testing, you mean?
there's third party data? Form
So the data is on physical product. So it would be like a drug device combination. Like take an auto and take like the Ozempic pen, So if there was a third party, say the third party makes the device constituent, so they make the pen, right? But then say we assemble it, right? And we send it to that third party and say, we need you to test it per this standard because that's the standard that's recognized throughout the world and you have to meet certain criteria for the safety and efficacy of the product, right? So it has to you say it needs to inject within 10 seconds, right? So then you have to prove with your product, at certain conditions that it can inject within 10 seconds, those kinds of things. So,
but the experimentation to determine whether or not the laboratory experiments to determine whether or not it met those protocols is separate. Right now,
so we would build those parts and then the experiment or the testing, we call it testing, right, would be done by that third party. So
okay.
yeah, so us as the pharma company, we would get like the device constituent component, like say an auto injector, right? And then the auto injector has a pre-filled syringe that goes into it. So that's the drug part, right? And then we would take that and send it back to the third party and say, hey, you test it to this protocol and it needs to meet this criteria,
Okay.
They would
So
give us the data back, and then
and all of those steps that you just described are
It's another module.
that's what
That's modules.
I think that
Yeah.
there's multiple components. So like, going back to my slide about these different people, these different tasks that are happening in here.
Yeah.
Those really
We'd have to list those people. Yeah.
it's this. Some of the things that you just described, at least in my mind, not really fully understanding what's going on here. Like I feel like a couple of those things could be routing. I feel like a couple of those things could be just a prompt chain. in terms of the decision-making process. But I'm just trying to wrap my head around like what is the smallest, most granular module that is happening here? Because this is
I mean,
definitely a complicated, because you're outputting a protocol and a report.
yeah, the smallest thing would be, let's say, if we want to start with something, let's just get a protocol,
Okay.
The report would be like a secondary thing,
Okay.
because that would be like, it would take more work,
Oh, so the input would not be the protocol, sorry, the output would be the protocol.
Yeah, the output, so asset specific protocol, that's what I have, right? But the input would be, templates, past protocols, like I had up there, standard operating procedures, because we have, and then asset specific formulation. You just wouldn't have past reports,
Right. I'm wondering if that would work. Because then what's happening here is you're basically saying, here, ChatGPT, here's a
Yeah,
list
it'll work. Yeah.
of
Here.
all of our templates, all of our past protocols, all of our standard operating procedures, and I'm not really even sure what an asset formulation is, but okay, this is
It's like the drug, basically.
Okay, it's a drug.
Yeah. Yeah.
Drugs.
Not Durugs.
Yeah,
drugs.
yeah.
It's hallucinating.
Todd is
Hey,
hallucinating.
hey, I know. It's a low bar. I'm trying to jump over that.
It's an asset, a feature. It's a feature,
Feature.
Todd.
Thank you, Mafe. Now you're speaking my data science language. Okay.
Your lingo, yeah.
So the output would be the protocol, and then the cognitive steps would be what? We're just
The cognitive steps would be like you would, it would basically like you would in the LLM would ingest the template, right?
Yep.
It would ingest the past protocols, ingest the SOP, and then you'd write like, give me a protocol with this asset, right? This drug, replace that in the template, right? Wherever it said drug XYZ, right? And then give me that, that
but
protocol.
so in that scenario though, is an LLM even needed? Like, is there a cognitive decision as opposed to just a simple SQL query?
Um, there's a cognitive decision. I wouldn't say there was a cognitive decision. Well, there is kind of a cognitive decision because it's ingesting a template, right? And it's ingesting past protocols and it's using language, right, to put that together into the new protocol, right? Like it's making a decision based on what you're giving it, right? And how you prompt it, right?
Yes. Okay. That's doable.
Yeah.
So if you can, if there's some way, we can transfer, some of these template information, what would be the inputs? We could just dump that into ChatGPT like right now and see if we can get some.
Well, I just asked it to give me a protocol
All right.
template and it gave me one, but I don't know where you want to put it.
Yeah, just dump it in the Zoom chat, DM me or something like that.
Okay, it's
We'll
pretty
play with
long,
that.
but I can put it.
I kind of want to play with it. Or we can just, if you want to just create a new slide in the deck at the very bottom and just copy paste it, and we can use that later. All right, let me look at what Roland, Carey, and Viswa did. Tax-based tip. Look into the client portfolio of stocks and advise if any stocks sell eligible for tax savings. Okay, so the inputs are going to be the client demographic, the stocks purchase list, and the tax codes. Yes, we're going to need to know information about the tax code. The outputs would be the tax savings tip. The cognitive steps would be the criteria for tax savings, state, federal tax laws, client portfolio match at the at the transaction level. Because we want to know it is for each, you have to look at this at the trend. Oh, right. Whose idea was this? Was this yours, Viswas?
Yeah, it's a team we came up with this card.
Mm.
And I'm part of a financial services company, so for me it was an easy idea to come up with.
This seems like it's a doable idea. If we can simulate the client demographic, a list of purchased stocks at a certain price. By the way, would this also be buy and sell?
Yes, correct.
Just buy.
We can just take sell because for sell, like if you sell at a loss, usually you will get a tax exemption for the loss, right?
I like this idea. All right, let me pull up because we're running out of time. Let's go to Sri, Sunil, and Victor. Oh, we just lost Sunil. So, Victor, Sri, what did you guys come up with? Victor, are you there?
I'm here. Shri is there as well.
Oh, good. Okay.
I'm just going to we'll go with the first one. We went with an HR onboarding process for new hires, and the inputs were, of course, the hired individual, the organizational tier structure, geographic location, start date, and other points along those lines. Whether it's a hybrid, remote, or on-prem position, any relocation requirements or benefits, and certainly the full benefits package, and also the corporate culture, rules and regs, on and on and on,
Right.
that we didn't belabor. For outputs, we have the individual mapped into their roles and responsibilities within a department with a reporting start date and time, and their
Wouldn't that be part of the input? Don't we know what they were hired for already in terms of their role and responsibilities?
well, this is I'll ask Sri to weigh in on that, but they have a particular process there, and I know he had some thoughts beyond what you just suggested.
Yeah. So thank you. Thank you. So basically, the idea is to make sure they are put into the right level of training, like beginner, moderate, and advanced. Everybody claims to be having advanced skill, but rather when you give an evaluation, they will be exposed, or we'll get the results to put them in the appropriate training. That's good for their career pathing as well as for the shop floor or some place where they are going to work, even though they claim a lot of things in their resume, which is subject to validation. But this is more like a typical get down to earth assessment. So that way, we would like to get them trained. They are anyway onboarded.
So, wait, they're already onboarded.
Yeah, they are already onboarded. We are only trying to plan their next training that they need to undergo before they start their job. So onboarding, you do an assessment to put them in the right level of training in the first, like an induction, or what do you call the initial 1 or 2 weeks of training, before they get to know about their operational procedures, standard operating procedures, their work instructions, and things like that. If they are, like, say, robotics, or if they are related to some electricals, mechanical, and whatnot, then they will be put onto the right level of training as part of the 2 weeks onboarding exercise, and then they will be sent to the place where they are going to work.
So they would not be hired into the place where they're going to work beforehand?
They will be hired. Very good. They are electrical maintenance guys, or they could be like automotive guys, or they could be any other person, but still they need to go through the organizational way of doing things. You might be a good guy with the electrical knowledge, you might be a great mechanical knowledge, but this is how we do it in our system. So we got to get them to know the full flow of let's say manufacturing, okay, or whatever it is.
Right.
So this is where it is. Yeah, that's where we are trying to customize.
So to me, in my mind, and I'm not going to delete anything, I don't think that those roles, responsibilities, or the department, or the reporting date, time, or the manager, I think that those are part of the input. Meaning we know that stuff in advance, don't we? And the
Yes.
goal of this cognitive agentic module would be to place the employee into the right level of training.
Yes.
Okay. So to me, this is another great, now that in my mind, this is absolutely, by the way, coffee. What are you messing with me? You're joking with me, right? Like, this
Part
is
of
just
every onboarding process.
You're just trolling me, right? It's okay. Troll the professor. Okay, good. Coffee, equipment, badge, security, access, training. Right. Okay. But those aren't the cognitive steps, are they? Those are also part of the outputs.
Well, those were discussed as there has to be some cognitive step to make sure that the equipment, the computer, the telephone system, the security badge, the security accesses, all those things
Okay. That's the checklist.
have to be cognitively available for the AI to make the assignment to the new hire.
So these are the checklist items.
Yeah.
Well, can you give a quick 30-second? What do you expect in cognitive?
Sorry, ask the question again, Sri.
No, what do you expect in cognitive? Is it a decision making or just
Yeah, like
requirements to
how
be
would
successful?
you take the inputs and make a decision to deliver those outputs? By the way, I just got to point this out because Mafe mentioned it earlier. I put the cognitive steps column in the wrong location. It really should be inputs, cognitive steps, then outputs. My bad. But so does that make sense? Like, you know, what is the decision criteria of this process that we're trying to build, of this module? You know, are we looking at the equipment? No. Are we looking at their badge? No. Or
No,
maybe we,
no,
you
no.
like, so of the inputs, we've hired this individual into this organizational tier structure. We look at their location, we look at their start date, we look at whether or not they're hybrid, remote, or on premise. We look at whether or not we have to relocate them. We look at their roles and responsibilities in the department and who they're reporting to and their date and time and who their manager is. And then we're going to make a decision on, okay, which training
Yep,
lessons are
yep.
we going to
Yeah,
assign to them?
I mean, I think for inputs, you'll need, because usually in companies and corporations, they have training curriculums, that
Yeah.
are in, training management systems, right? So if it's making a decision based on like what department they're in, what their role is, then those training curriculums should be geared so that, you know, it knows like, okay, it's in this department, in this role, it needs this training kind of thing.
Yes.
Right? That's the decision you're asking it
That's
for.
exactly
Exactly. Bingo. That's exact assessment.
Yeah.
Yes, and I would also add in our conversation, the cognitive steps are more about setting up the new hire with those elements like their equipment, their badge, their security definition, and the
Okay, so
appropriate
then if,
training program. So those are things that an agent could or a supervisor supervising agents
yeah, I mean
could
that,
navigate to get those outcomes of those pieces in place.
right. I think that's part of onboarding, Victor, because I remember when I onboarded, right? Someone sat with me and, you know, gave me stuff, right? I got
Right, right. But the suggestion is that an AI agent or a
could do
supervisor
that.
agent and agents would do that. That was the context of this,
Okay.
the way it was presented.
Because training is an aspect of onboarding, right? I guess.
Well, I kind of like the definition that we started with, that Shree's company just hires and then they figures it out later. So I want to interview for that company.
So to me, it's like, look at the role, look at the location, look at the list of curriculums. This is
And
how
then
I would be,
assign one. Yeah, and then assign
right.
one.
And then assign the,
But what Victor's also saying is, okay, they need a badge, so go to the, look at his name, uh, get his badge ready, notify security, so he can pick up his badge,
oh, okay, so the
that
badge
kind of
is
thing.
not part of the input. That has not been
No,
assigned yet.
no, that would be alerted to the security organization that
Yeah, that
produces
they
the
need a
badge
badge. Yeah,
So
and
it's okay.
programs the security accesses.
yeah.
So in fairness, these steps, the cognitive steps would be, most of these would be pre-programmed. So it would have to be. So the cognition is there to know what the role is and what the security accesses for the role are, and on, so that now it's just a mapping exercise.
Yeah. Security access can be built into the role responsibility, right? Yeah.
Right. But the idea that once a person is hired and their role is defined according to these predefinitions, then agents could take over these steps and knock out tasks.
Mm.
Yeah,
That's again, that was the perspective that we took on this.
I like it. All right. I just looked at the time. I noticed like we're basically out of time and I didn't get a chance to really like play with any ChatGPT. Or which one of these things are going to be easy for us to simulate? Does anybody have any thoughts on this? Again, I'm in I'm stumped as to which one of these things we should just try with ChatGPT. Chanika, what are your thoughts? Do we want to try this?
You
Can
know, I
we?
mean, I already started trying the protocol. Like you can generate a protocol. I just prompted. If you want,
Can you?
I
Do
could
you want,
copy my prompt in here,
or do you want to share your screen and show us what you were able to do?
Yeah, I could probably do that. I used Google AI Studio, so let me
I love Google AI Studio.
share my screen.
By the way, for those of you who don't know Google AI Studio, this is such a great tool. It's a
And
developer. It's a
while you're
developer.
bringing that up, I have a question for Carlos, if you don't mind.
A question for you're cold calling Carlos? Uh-oh.
Yes.
Wait.
I'm wondering your
I'm having
impression.
technical difficulty.
That's okay. We all are. Um, and some cognitive challenges, but that's what AI is for. Anyway, this isn't recorded, is it? I didn't just say that.
I can edit it out.
What
You're
I'm
fine.
getting at is, do you feel like the modules that are being named in this exercise are the modules that you had in mind that we should be discovering, or are we somehow missing that aspect?
I think you've got modules. You know, yes, people's intuitions about modules are extremely good. The questions that come up are what are the the challenges are where the modules have connections and where those connections go. And I've in the examples I've been seeing here, there's a lot of awareness of that. I mean, I'm a big believer in capturing the outside dependencies. So isolating the module and then figuring out what its inputs and outputs, its dependencies are. So yes, I think these are modules. People are really, humans are really great at seeing modules. And then what we don't do so well is track the connections. I hope that helps.
It was one clarification, if you don't mind. When you say connections, I think of the term workflow. Is that what you...
Yeah, workflow, dependency.
Okay.
Yeah, inputs and outputs are where to start. Sometimes you have dependencies that are not inputs or outputs, although usually they're one removed, like protocols are inputs, right? So, but they're not direct inputs sometimes. APIs.
Yeah.
Okay.
So understanding where the connections lie, I think we are proliferating these connections, or our current practices are proliferating the connections, and God only knows. I mean, the end result is total spaghetti.
Yeah. And so that was the diagram that I had earlier of the advertising agency. It's spaghetti. And I simplified that because when you look at all of the different granular aspects of what would be conceptually implemented in an agentic pipeline, or what those people do, it's so complicated, the complexity just explodes. Yet somehow, when properly architected, we're able to extract the entire pipeline and almost automate all of it to a certain threshold of quality. We still might get garbage out of it, but like, wait, it did it? It actually output something and it gave its feedback?
Yeah, Todd, I'm totally with you. We are, as humans, we create connections all the time and we don't track them hardly ever.
That's right. It's the software. It's the like I go up to the creative director and be like, hey, what do you think about this? That was a connection. There was a dependency. There was a communication that occurred. It was still a module at a granular level. It affected the work that I did, and it might have affected the work that that other person did. Yet it doesn't get documented. It doesn't get explained. Yet somehow, when you give these agentic tools a small modular granular mission, they go do it. They figure it out. It's one of the most amazing things in the world.
Totally agree. I think we're late.
Yeah, right. All
Okay,
right, so
so you guys
Chanika,
are seeing my screen, right?
yeah, we can see your
Todd,
screen.
thank you for the invitation. It's been a great evening, and best wishes to everybody.
Thank you, Carlos. And Carlos, if you
thanks.
ever want to hang out and you want to play with some large language models and stuff like that, let me know. I'm around.
Oh, okay. I'm
All right.
Hey, thank you.
All right, take care.
puppy dog who needs to go out.
All right, Chanika, you're up.
Okay, so this is the prompt I use. Actually, it's using Gemini 2.5 Pro
Good.
O3, so I guess it's a reasoning model because
Yes.
I think the O3s are those. So what I did is I just prompted it with a simple prompt. Actually, I did a pretty good job.
Holy
Yeah, so this is a long, but I said generate a design verification protocol. That's a type of protocol for a device, drug device combination product, right? For a device constituent. So that's like the auto injector, the safety syringe, right? For a drug device combination product, right?
Right.
So it gave me, the protocol. Now I didn't have it in just a template because our templates are proprietary and I can't do it in this
No worries.
Google AI. I could do it in our, our thing, but I'm not going to do it there, because I can't share like that kind of stuff, right? But this kind of gives you like, oh, so it said, okay, here's the protocol, device constituent, associated combination product, full name, the number, the revision, which is things we normally have, the signatures, who would sign it.
Right.
It has a table of contents, what's in scope, out of scope. It did a pretty good job. I mean, in terms of like what's in the protocol. It doesn't know
And by the way, that is a zero shot prompt. Like that is just, hey, what's in your brain? Tell me what this is.
Yeah. So it kind of did a pretty good job actually.
One of the things that I always ask my students is to, at this level, what did it get wrong? Is there anything that you see here that's just, nope, that's wrong?
Well, no, because like if I was going to get specific, like, so I just said for a device constituent, right? Because I didn't tell it it's an auto injector or it's a safety syringe or what device it is, right? So it kind of gave me a generic, because like it's referencing standards here that are a bunch of different standards, which could apply if for certain, for certain products, right?
And they could also be hallucinations.
116, yeah, I'd probably have to look that up because no, 11608 is a real standard.
Okay, interesting. All right.
And 14971 is a real standard. These are all, and 21 CFR Part 820, that's FDA reg, and Part 4, those are real actually.
Got it.
I'd have, I'd have to check some. Yeah.
So folks that understand what I'm, in that agentic diagram that I had earlier, the cognitive stuff, the RAG, the memory, there are ways to ensure that the LLM is getting the data right. So we're not, this is a zero shot prompt. Hey, what do you, based off of your knowledge, make this up for me. So, yeah.
And I notice that the temperature you have here is that 1?
Yeah.
That's also stuff. Yeah, leave that there.
Yeah. I think that was a standard.
Interesting.
Yeah, that was a standard. So then, and it breaks down like all of those things that described in the table of context. It pretty much breaks down. It doesn't, like, I know for the acceptance criteria, if we go there, like we usually have a design verification trace matrix, which it converts basically user needs like, handedness or, ease of injection into like an engineering requirement, so that we can test against. So it doesn't have it here because it doesn't know what kind of device I'm asking for, So So if I was to get more creative in the prompt, I could specify that and it might have some language here. Or I can even ingest like a trace matrix that I have, a proprietary one, right? And then it would just fill it in.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
So,
So now,
Sharnaka, I have
go
a
ahead, Marco,
question.
sorry.
Yeah.
Since the temperature here is 1,
Yeah.
which meant that's creative, right? And if we
Yeah.
do, what would it look like if temperature is at 0? What will be the response on this
That would make it
0?
determined. Don't mess with the temperature.
Okay.
And
It
that's
will
what,
make.
But we could try it later.
don't waste our
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Okay. But
No, I'm just curious because we're testing it here. So
Yeah.
because this is the output at 1,
Yeah. It gave examples here. I mean, in a real protocol, you probably wouldn't have examples, but I guess it gave an example of like what it's thinking of, and test methods and procedures. Like if I was really, using this, I would take some of our proprietary methods and say, these are the methods that are going to be associated with that acceptance criteria, for them to execute, because you need a method, right, to execute against an acceptance criteria. Right.
So just to be clear, and I don't want you to spend time doing this because it's going to really mess with, because
Yeah.
that's a rabbit hole, Mafe, sorry. But it will make a change in the output significantly. And the higher the number, it's more creative. The lower the number, the more deterministic based off of its learned knowledge. So, because it's a probability, it's a stochastic probability of the next token. That's what is being adjusted here.
And it looks like, key considerations when implementing, like kind of listed that. I think in the beginning, it kind of listed some assumptions too.
Okay.
And then after this, I said, generate the corresponding report to match that protocol, right?
Tell me that.
And then that's down here. So I said, generate. And we could expand the model to look at the thoughts.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's amazing. And by the way, you didn't turn on the Google search, so that's another thing you could have done, but don't.
Okay.
We're focusing right now on the internal knowledge of the model.
Yeah, so this is how I thought about it, I guess.
Yeah.
I didn't really. But then this is the report. So like something I would check is like it gave me the report, it has a table of contents too, I think, that it listed. And then it does give options, which was interesting, but with an executive summary, like, because sometimes things don't pass 100% on the first time around. Sometimes they pass with deviations, or sometimes they fail. So it gives different options, which is, I mean, those things could happen, like in a real, when you execute a real study,
Okay. So now,
yeah.
to test your hypothetical modular agentic thing here, what you just showed me was an example of the report and an example of a template protocol.
Yeah. So what I would do is like the inputs was like a template, right? Like I know for us, we have a proprietary template in a company, right? Like in the chain of thought, I would probably say, I want to use this template, right? I would probably load up the methods. I'd probably load up a design trace matrix with requirements. So then it would fill those areas in,
And still on top of that, Chanukah, we would build this through JSON or Markdown. That way the LLM is going to be able to interpret it easier than just raw text. So if
what I would do is, because you can attach things, I would create, like I could put them in my Google Drive, like this is my template, this is this, right? And then I would attach those, and then I would run it, with those attachments.
Yeah, if you're just building out a little simulation prototype, absolutely. If you're actually building for deployment in production, we're going to add a bunch of steps to this. But just you'd upload a folder into your Google Drive, attach your Google Drive to the AI Studio.
Or that would be the sequence of steps in the prompting. I would say, okay, here's add this template, add this past report that was like, or past protocol that was like a model, add this trace matrix with certain requirements. And then I would structure my prompt to kind of, make sure it gets stuff from those things, and add like what the formula, what the name of the product is, add like, okay, you're going to use this standard for an auto injector or for a patch pump, right? So then it would know exactly what tests from what standard that we would have to meet, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so in this example of what, we propose on the slide, I would then ask, because we're out of time,
Yeah.
it's already 10 o'clock, but what I would do here is I would say, okay, here are two of our, here's our protocol. Sorry,
Yeah.
template, my bad. Here's our template example. Here's here's a list of past protocols, and you would give them examples. Like here's
like the good ones, the good ones, yeah.
yeah, the good ones. Okay.
Yeah.
Here are, here's a format of a report, and again, in my mind, it would be like here's a JSON format of a report.
Yeah.
The structure in Markdown of a past report. Here's a sample listing of multiple standard operating procedures. Here's a list of multiple drug formulations.
All right.
Take all of this stuff. That's your core knowledge. Now, here's the new one. Here's the new thing. This is the data from the third party. This is what and generate the asset specific protocol.
Right.
And generate the report.
Yeah, for the report, you need the data from the third party. For the protocol, you wouldn't need that.
Sorry, my bad.
Data, right?
Yeah,
yep.
I was looking at, we have to, the first step is to build the protocol. The second step is to build a report. Yeah.
Right.
Scratch that, redo it.
Yeah.
Lay it back down and reverse.
It's fine. It's fine.
No, this is, and look, I'm thrilled that you're using Google AI Studio.
Yeah. I mean, we have our own proprietary stuff behind firewalls, which we can call on Claude, Gemini Flash, BMS GPT, all of these things,
So are you deploying any of these agentic tools using this
So
stuff?
I'm working in my group to develop the digital strategy for our group, So we have like a digital manifesto. Do you remember Derek Fourier? Remember Derek? He was in HBAP. Okay. So he's at BMS too, like higher level. But I think he helped work on this digital manifesto, So it's like how we're gonna, roll this out in the company, right? Like a digital manifesto. And then there's like there's like a council. It's like people, processes, like different things, And it actually references certain things that we probably learned, in our classes, So we have that manifesto, and it's funny because when I was working on the digital strategy, I had the BMS GPT ingest the manifesto, So I ingested the manifesto. Then we have this approach, like we want to do model first, like a model first approach. And a lot of pharma companies are doing that, right? So more modeling, less actual empirical data, right? So if we can do modeling and less empirical data, like less DV, then that's an approach that we could use for a submission. FDA has a computational modeling guidance, and there are things like VNV40, which is a ASME standard for how to assess models and model risk. Because if you get the risk wrong, right, then what does that mean? Like you have to understand that. So
and actually, that's a great example of an experiment to run on an agentic pipeline. It's like, okay, hey, this is a threshold here. What are the inputs? What are the outputs? And what's our risk profile?
Right. So I'm gonna so I have actually, because now our LLMs can ingest more. Like I've had it ingest certain things, like the manifesto, certain things, and then I can ask it questions because it's ingested those.
And so the other tool that I use, again, you're using Google AI Studio, so you're already in this advanced. By the way, for folks here, the Google AI Studio is really for developers. It's really for advanced stuff. It is not, in my mind, it is not a consumer-facing tool. It is really a developer-facing tool that I would use for prototyping apps that are going to be built on other Google platform stuff like Python. So if you're there, this is a great place to start in running those experiments. But you're not running agentic pipelines through Google AI
No,
Studio.
because this is not proprietary. So we
Well,
have our
okay,
own. Yeah, we have our own.
I'm just speaking on average in
Yeah,
general, you know, like, because you're building your own stuff, you want to build your own
yeah,
apps. Yes, you can start to go down that route here. But using Crew AI, using AutoGen, using LangChain, that's all Python. So those are there are other tools, and again, that's all coding.
right.
Anyway, I know we're at time, we're actually past time. But John, if you share, thanks.
Yeah.
I didn't get a chance to really do a simulation what I was hoping for with the agentic stuff, but the modules are there, and I think it's just a little bit more complicated. I have to come back and I have to think about, okay, you know, here's an example that I'm going to come up with, and then I'll run through it. So, but thank you. I really appreciate. I hope this was helpful. And by the way, Victor, freaking awesome question you asked, Carlos. Oh, this is being recorded. I'm going to stop recording. Thank you. Come. I'll see you.